And welcome back as we have another fantastic lunch with Stone Hansen lined up for you. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here for the Lakers Fast Break Pop Culture Cosmos, where we cover the latest news and trends in pop culture each and every week, twice a week, where we get your podcasts. Also, as well, Inside Sports Fantasy Football. That'll be coming up later this week to cover the Turkey Day games and more. Plus, also go ahead and give a big shout out to everybody that helps us out, supports us, from the Lakerholics crew to John Costa's great channels, Clutch Talk and Lakers Corner, also as well, Alfred Esmond, Legend, Lakers in 5, also as well, John McCallion channel, all those great channels, Daniel Berry Sports Highlights, all those great channels. Go ahead and support, but please make sure you support us by liking and subscribing today. Plus, also as well, go ahead and make sure you become a member today. Getting you a member as far as becoming a member gets you also as well some emojis, badges, also some good stuff behind the scenes, videos that debut on YouTube first for members and more for just $2.99 a month right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast. Well, the Lakers are coming off 2 losses that are very stinging indeed. That last second shot with actually was with 2 seconds left by Franz Wagner against Orlando, and then the devastating second half that we showed off against Denver. What to make of it? So we thought we'd sit around the lunch table and chew the fat with a guy that's always a good man to talk to. He is, of course, the man behind Upside Swings, along with his good friends there. Plus, of course, you go ahead and check out what he's doing today at report_court. It is Stone Hansen. Stone, glad to have you here. Joe, you and I are just hanging out for lunch, but we're kind of troubled, my friend, on what's going on with the Lakers as we sit and sip on our soda and I guess dig into our chicken sandwiches or hamburgers or whatever we're having for lunch today.
Yeah. I mean, 2 losses isn't the end of the world. It's not a huge losing streak. The first one was, I actually don't think we played that poorly in the Orlando Magic game. I thought that the Magic just executed better down the stretch, the final half of the fourth quarter. But for the most part, I thought we played that game fairly well. The Denver game, I think it was more that Denver's just so many levels above us than we are playing bad basketball against them. I think that they're just a more talented, better team than us flat out. And I think it's at this point it's become somewhat of a mental challenge on top of that for the Lakers, where they have this mental hurdle whenever they play them, and it's difficult for them to get over it. So I think that loss at this point should be expected. When the Lakers play Denver, I kind of just automatically assume that we'll be losing that game.
Also here today, a good man indeed. It is, of course, the man behind Oxide T47 at LakersBall.com, the owner of Simblades with a Y.com, and a guy who will have his game out there on Wednesday on PC, on Steam, right there for you. Is it also coming to the Epic's game front, or is it just Steam, Joe?
Just Steam for right now, but
okay.
We know Epic will be calling once there's noise. That's what I'm calling it. The noise will be there's over 10,000 wish lists. So let's just say if all 10,000 purchase, I think there's going to be some rumbling starting right just from that. And then, of course, if it hits 20, then it's probably done at at that point. There's going to be we have discussions with big companies that are just kind of waiting in the wings, waiting to see if the public says yes or no, whether through purchase or through reviews, because the game doesn't have a lot tied to it in terms of, I would say, perspiration for the big companies. They don't have to spend money or thought on development, which is usually where everything goes to crap because they overspend. They don't know how to manage. It's rich people versus poor people. It's who's, just like in sports, when you have the owner, when you have the Jerry Krauses say, well, players don't win championships, organizations win championships. And that someone says, wait a minute, you don't win jack squat without Pippen, Jordan, and, so-and-so. Well, in the end, the players, meaning the people who develop the game, are more important than whatever bigwig is pushing it, of course. But at the same time, you guys are reliant on the money that those people are paying you. Therefore, you lose that control, and you resent that control, but yet you keep coming back to keep allowing yourself to take the hits. So what we've done is we've done something that isn't unprecedented, but it is in a lot of ways defiant, without being disrespectful to the industry. We've said, look, we've tried to work with 3 publishers. They all failed. Matter of fact, Gerald, I have to tell you something here after the show. It's nothing that the audience would understand, but you would, because you've been in the industry, that I kind of find hilarious. That happened literally this morning. I got the call this morning. People getting fired, that kind of stuff. People that you might know. And there's no other way that in my life, except for a few people in my life where I felt, okay, these people are kind of looking out for you in the working world, but not really. But that was just enough at that time. I think in the end, you have to be able to do things on your own and create your own connections and create your own path. But the problem is it takes longer. And then on top of that, it takes longer if you do it right. Now, what's right? That's subjective. Well, I'll tell you what's right. It's actually not that subjective. We're not out here to screw people out of their money. The people that invest in this game get the same story. All right, you're going to put X amount of dollars in this game, correct? Yes, Joe. Yes, so-and-so. I want to do this. I'm like, all right, do you understand that you might not get your money back? Do you understand that this might be a failure? This is not selling big pencils or selling landscape. This is far from it. We could do everything perfectly, yet if the audience says your game stinks, it's over. No matter how hard you worked, no matter how excited you were, as soon as the audience says you suck, it's over. And that's it.
BTS says, Joe, BTS has come on a little bit grouchy this morning, guys, so you'll have to forgive him. So let's not be too hard on him, because already gotten some flack already over the course of the weekend. Stone is a hater. Joe the hater is a game developer. Wow. So BTS, I guess, woke up on the wrong side of the bed. You'll have to forgive him. He says, BTS, my entire
I'm not a
family
game developer.
He's a financier.
I'm a guy that helped with the finance. I'm the guy that's involved with the support. I always like
the
to
money
say
man.
support. Yeah, not all the way money man, but definitely at the beginning. And then
you have an investment into
yes,
it.
there you go.
It's a percentage investment.
I am not a game developer. However, game developers are always treated like garbage with the guys who are putting the money in and are in charge. That's kind of where I'm going with this. And in my view of things, for those of you who interpret things a certain way, which you're always going to do that, me going off on the show isn't going to change that, because people are naturally selfish and stupid. So they're just going to continue to do that. It's just what it is. What what I tried to do in this sequence is I try to learn from experience of others who are in the industry. A good example, and this is something you'll definitely know, Gerald. You probably heard the story. Alan Ladd Jr. Do you remember Alan Ladd Jr.? He
I do.
was I believe he was in charge of 20th Century Fox during the Star Wars
He
first
was.
movie. He was in charge of, I would say he was the president. And a lot of times these names of these companies, you never know, see if the president, CEO, whatever. He was in charge at the time. And I remember watching documentaries. One of my favorite documentaries is a Star Wars documentary that's like almost 3 hours long. That was on the DVD package from like a while back, like early 2000s. So he said that he let George Lucas, he didn't understand what the hell Star Wars was. Hell, everyone on set didn't know what the hell it was. He didn't know, definitely. But he trusted George Lucas. And he trusted him based off of, American Graffiti. He goes, dude, this guy took $1 million budget and made some car movie in Modesto, about Modesto, which, by the way, that's next to where I grew up in Turlock. It was like the Turlock-Modesto thing, right? And he made $100 million off $1 million budget film. Hey, at that time, that's like hitting on a Big Fat Greek Wedding. It cost $5 million. They ended up making like $200 million. Same way, right? Same kind of culture-inducing type film where people loved it because it was fun to watch. So since watching that, I and this is for the the people who call us haters. That just proves that they don't really know what the hell they're talking about. That's what they think, and usually what people think is useless. It's about the product, and you see the talent. Your job, also as the money guy or the guy in charge to help push something, is to recognize talent. And when you leave talent to be, and I'll correlate it with sports. Do you remember when Dennis Rodman needed to go to Vegas for 3 days? It's on The Last Dance. What happened? Did Phil Jackson go, I run a tight ship. We don't do that here. Did Michael Jordan cry and whine? Oh my God, I can't believe he's going to Vegas. He did say, hey, if anybody needs a vacation, I need a vacation. But I'm sure him and Phil are smart enough to realize that Dennis was different. And he needed whatever he needed. And they gave it to him. Now, Michael took it up on his own accord to, guess right that he wouldn't be back in 3 days. And guess what? He flew to Vegas and got him back. In life, not everything is going to be like this.
Did he gamble while he was there, Joe?
Probably. Not this. Well, Jordan gambled every day, folks. Jordan gambled at the carousel at the airport. Now you're probably wondering what the hell are you talking about? So he had a bet, and I think this was preemptive from what I remember the story. So I think he paid the luggage guy to make sure that luggage was first to come out the gate or come out the carousel. So he made a bet with one of his friends. I can't remember who it was. And he said, how much you want to make a bet that my luggage comes out first? And of course he won and collected, what was it, $1,000 or whatever it was, $2,000. He goes, not a bad investment. Not a bad return on I think it was $50 or whatever it was. So yeah, Jordan is a gambler. Most professional athletes are actually gamblers. If you guys want to hear a really kind of crazy, cool story, is go on YouTube and look up Lamar Odom gambling. And listen to what Lamar said about Kobe when Lamar got himself in really bad doo-doo gambling. He had to ask Kobe for help, and Kobe cussed him up and down on the phone and hooked him up and got him out of his rut. And of course, he paid every dime back too. So we're kind of segueing out of the story here. But again, in the end, the moral of the story is, folks, is recognizing your situation. Not everything can be black and white. You have to understand that you're going to go into certain instances in life where you have to adjust. And guess what? You still might be wrong, but you won't know until you do it. That's what makes life hard, is you can do everything right, and it won't matter. You could do everything wrong and it hits. That's life right there. A crappy movie makes people famous. You hear the stories about how that movie was made. Oh, the movie was a disaster. No one got along. No one did this. All of a sudden, it's still a hit. Or everyone had fun. Everyone was great, but the movie sucked. That's the world we live in. We live in a world of there's no rules really. It's just circumstance sometimes and chance.
Once again, it is Lunch with Stone Hansen. It is Joe Soro along with Stone Hansen. Stone, let me bring it back to you. So the Lakers, again, having 2 tough games in a row. They've got a game tomorrow night against Phoenix. I wanted to ask you this. Last week we mentioned here on the show, just before the Orlando game, we said, okay, the schedule's going to start getting tougher in the next 2 to 3 weeks. I think it's going to be a better test and a better gauge of what this team is going to be at this point in time. It's still early, still 15, 16 games in for most of these teams, still halfway to 30 on the Rob Pelinka evaluation scale, because that's what he originally earmarked was 30 games. But the next 15 games would be something that we probably could get a better gauge because the Lakers do go out on a tough road trip here. They do go ahead and play some tough teams, better teams than what they've been playing, teams that are more healthy, teams that have more availability, and teams, Stone, that quite frankly are looking to win as much as the Lakers are.
Yeah, it's a good schedule for us. I think you want to sort of get a gauge. The earlier, kind of the better. This is about the earliest you can really start doing that. Less of the fluky stuff is happening now, and you're able to get more substance out of games. The Suns, I mean, that'll be a bit of a challenge. I think we'll play the Suns pretty well, though, just because of the fact, I mean, no KD makes a big difference, and AD usually dominates. Um, the Spurs, I think, I mean, we should win that game. The Spurs, even with Wembanyama, are just not a very good team. We should win that, but we will see. The Thunder is really where it gets interesting. They have Hartenstein backing out a matchup against AD. I mean, the best team in the West for my money, and I think it's going to be a challenge because they just have guards that will absolutely destroy the Lakers on both sides of the ball. And it's a matter of how much can LeBron and AD carry this team. I think that's what that game is going to be a good barometer to see. How far can LeBron and AD still take us when a lot of the other guys are going to be taken out of the game with that perimeter defense that they have. And then, yeah, from there, it's sort of an up and down schedule. I mean, we have some easy games like the Blazers, Jazz, and then you got some tougher opponents with the Kings a couple times, the Warriors. So it'll be interesting. I think it's a good mix, and hopefully out of that next 15, we come out another 10-5 or so. But I think there's a possibility we come out more even. Maybe it's like 7-7 or something.
Joe, again, we've talked about this, and we'll sure probably touch on it again in the coming days. With this schedule getting a little bit tougher starting tomorrow. Now, I don't share Stone's confidence or Stone saying that Kevin Durant is still out. He did practice for the 5-on-5, and it was said that he looked good. So I have a feeling Kevin Durant. They always seem to get healthy right around the Lakers' time, Stone. So you'll forgive my pessimism on the fact that I think Kevin Durant will probably be, have the fountain of health coming to him as far as it's concerned. But Joe, the schedule does get a little tougher, with again a couple caveats here and there, but for the most part, it does get tougher. The Lakers do go out on another tough road trip. That is all by design before the end of the 30-game mix. But as of now, the Lakers are still in 4th place in the Western Conference. I said to someone last night in the many comments that were thrown our way after the past couple games, boy, there's been quite a few on YouTube that have been thrown our way. I know you've read some of them as well, but I think you should. A lot of people out there, despite the two tough losses, should be relatively pleased. The Lakers are still fourth place in the Western Conference with a chance, again, by the time 30 games rolls around, to really still make an earmark for the season. Not as a top tier championship level contender, but as a team that still sits there in the 4, 5, 6 mix and could possibly even sneak into a home court situation later on in the playoffs.
16 games is just not enough. I don't even think 30 games will be enough to really understand what this is going to end like. Especially if someone like D'Lo continues to play like the way he is. And if there's no improvement with Max Christie. Gabe Vincent, I don't know if there's something there even. These guys are not. D'Lo has showed that he can switch it last year. He played very well after the new year, but it's just too much. It's too much to keep waiting for everyone. We're waiting for Vando. We're waiting for Christian Wood. We're waiting for D'Lo to come back. We're waiting for Gabe Vincent to start doing something. We're waiting for some development. You're talking about half your roster. You're waiting, and you all know how much I love to wait. And I just don't have any confidence in those people. I have confidence in LeBron, AD, as long as he's not playing Jokic and Sabonis and Embiid at full strength. And then you have someone like Austin Reeves, who isn't playing up to snuff for a lot of people out there, and he's the new whipping boy. He's always a whipping boy. I'm just surprised that they're going after Austin, and I say they as in Laker fans. And I find it comical that, and this is when you know you're doing something right, because I got called in the political environment. This is not this year, but in the past, I've been called both sides before in the same day. And I said, okay, I know I'm in the right place. So we got criticized for being negative and got criticized for not shitting on Austin Reeves. That's a good place to be. That means we are in the sweet spot. Because we know that right when that happens, folks, you know you got everyone by the nuts. Because what are you going to say? What you have proof that you are both, or I should say it's been validated by certain people. So now what? Now you can play that off. Well, you're saying don't be negative, but then be negative about this. I go, that's now we know I can prove that you are going off your thoughts. You're not going off logic. Because that's what I go after. Why am I going to go kill Austin Reeves? Because he's not a 40% three-point shooter? Because he can't guard anybody? What am I going to do? I might as well stare at this wall and go, why are you a wall? Austin Reeves is who he is. Now, why we can get angry at D'Angelo Russell is he's better than this. That is something to go after. That is something that's frustrating. You're talking about a guy who broke a Laker record, all-time record, a Laker team, one of the greatest franchises in sports history. And yet this guy looks like he hasn't played basketball in 3 years. Why? Go after that. You have a guy that you brought to this team that was supposed to be team-oriented, defender, blah, 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 good chemistry guy who can't even score a bucket sometimes in a game. And he's playing 18, 22 minutes? What? It's not good in those areas. And I think it's weird how the interpretation of that gets all weird. As far as where the Lakers are going to go at this moment, there's 100 different ways this can go. But there's only two that matter. Either they're going to end up 10-10 in the next 4 games, or they kind of get back on track. And I'm almost 100% that Durant's playing tomorrow. I have no doubt he's playing tomorrow. And if that happens, it's going to be much tougher to beat Phoenix and Phoenix. And then you have San Antonio, in San Antonio. I guess that's still kind of a challenge. But then after that, you got to go on a 6 out of 7 game road trip to all the hot spots. Utah is not a good team, but it's still Utah. Utah is a tough place to play. And then you're going to play Minnesota, Miami, and Atlanta, which always, Miami, Atlanta, games are always difficult. And then they got to come back to Portland, and then they got to go back-to-back for Sacramento before they play Detroit before Christmas. So, yeah, maybe we get a chance to see who they are here before Christmas. We'll find out. But even then, okay, let's say, looking at the schedule, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's say they go 7-4. That's 17 and 10. Okay, sure. That's not bad. Because I was thinking 20 and 10 would be, and they'd only be 3 games away from that without losing. That's what I'm hoping for. A 7-4 run here in the next 11 games, but it also could be 4-7. And if that's the case, now you're starting to see them drip down again under that 4 seed. And we're going to have to worry about, even if they did make the playoffs, are they again going to start a playoff run where they're on the road? And if that is the case, folks, they will not win anything because it is difficult. It's as difficult as anything in sports to win a championship without having home court the first round. Look up the stats since the current setup of the 3 playoff runs before you get to the finals. I think it started in 1990. There's only been 1 team. And that team needed Jordan to retire and Nick Anderson to turn into a butterfly, and it was 95 was a weird year for basketball. But any stable season, you just don't see it, no matter even with the upsets of the 8 seed beating the 1 seed or during the lockouts. It's just not going to happen, folks. It's not going to happen. It's a 1 in a half century type thing that probably could happen, but the Lakers aren't equipped either. They don't have the depth. They don't have the right kind of players that can make you feel like, okay, if there's a shot that needs to be made here, I think that he can make it happen.
Stone, let me bring it back to you. Jackson Hayes, according to JJ Redick, is probable for return from his ankle injury tomorrow versus Phoenix. What do you think that does for the team? I know that the bench has been a sore spot for us for quite some time, but he has, I guess, play at times given the Lakers a lift, depending again on how well he's utilized on that pick and roll, because that's one thing he does well. Your thoughts on Jackson Hayes? He has played a little bit better defense at times this year. Again, that's much better than what he offered last year. But your thoughts on Jackson Hayes returning to lineup most likely tomorrow?
I mean, he's better than Koloko, and Koloko has done an admirable job doing what he can, but Hayes is clearly just a better backup option. But I mean, our season shouldn't hinge on a backup center at this point. I mean, he does. He's our best option that we have, and I sort of like the double big lineups now that AD apparently can shoot a bit. I kind of like those lineups, and we'll probably get some more of that when Hayes is back. But I don't think in the grand scheme of things, Jackson Hayes changes the trajectory of this team on his own.
So let me ask you this though: Rui Hashimura came back to the lineup for the game against Denver. Dalton Connect was sent to the bench. A lot of fans said that probably wasn't the decision that they would make. I said I probably wouldn't do that either, especially the kid was playing well. Obviously, we saw in that second half the Lakers had no life and no energy and no focus or direction that second half. I'm not sure that one change would have made a difference in this situation, but still, the kid, you can see again, they're trying to find something for him, trying to find the minutes, trying to find something for him, but they're not able to go ahead and utilize him properly. I think coming off the bench, I think ultimately they're going to have to make a hard decision on where they want to send and how they want to play Dalton Connect on this team. So
Yeah, well, it is important that Connect did actually play more minutes than Rui, which is a good sign. He ended up, I think, playing like 6 or 7 more minutes. So they were able to get him in there more. He didn't get the nominal start, but I think over the course of the season that'll change. I just don't know at what point. And yeah, I've said it before. Rui is just a placeholder. He's just there because he was the best that we had, but he's not a very good player. He's a bench player. He's a 6th, 7th, 8th man for most teams. And not to say that Connect is a world beater, but he is something that this team. The reason Rui was starting was because he was the best shooter on the perimeter we had, and that's just no longer the case now that we have Connect. So I'm way more interested in starting Connect over Rui and playing him more minutes, playing Rui like 17 or 18 minutes. But we'll see where that goes. But for now, I at least like that JJ was prioritizing the minutes load towards Connect over Rui.
Joe, again, a lot of people took issue with the starting lineup change. Not necessarily Rui for Connect. You could have put it, taken out Reddish, who really is not that much of an offensive threat, but of course gives you the perimeter defense at times. Your thoughts on the changes that JJ made in the starting lineup? Maybe something that he might soon regret, or something that was just give it time and we'll get it back to where we need to get it.
When you're a coach, especially with professionals, you have to cater to certain personalities, and it's easier to use the rookie as the back off player. Hey, look, you're a rookie, right? I don't really know if that had anything to do with the game. Probably not. I mean, they were doing pretty well the first half. So I don't know if that really played a factor. As far as Reddish starting, I think what Laker fans need to understand is you got to make up your mind about what you want. Do you want somebody to play defense, or do you want somebody to not play defense? And what do you need in a Denver game? You got to cover Michael Porter Jr. You got to cover usually Aaron Gordon. You got to cover very, very good players from scoring. So do you want D'Angelo to start, or do you want Connect, who struggles on defense, to start against a team that's offensively potent? Which one is it? Are you watching the games? Do you understand the game? Or are you going off your feelings again? Because all of a sudden, as soon as the Lakers start losing and one little thing is not to their liking, all of a sudden now JJ Redick's making a mistake. How about going after Anthony Davis for turning into a pumpkin in the second half? At some point, too, you have to blame the players. At some point, it's obvious that you blame the players. Each game might be different. Each week might be different. But let's look at Anthony Davis as an example. What has Anthony Davis done consistently for a while now against guys like Jokic? He's turned into a pumpkin. And this is supposed to be a MVP caliber player, right? Right out of the gate. Can't do that. Can't do that. When I used to watch the Shaqs, the Kobes, the Gasols, I use those three because those are the the mainstays of the last LeBron and AD to a certain extent a few years ago. Those guys had very, very good games, seasoned with some lousy games every now and then. AD seems to have a lousy game too many times. And it usually is a lousy game against his, I guess you could say, his even constituents, evenly talented constituents. And he has more talent than Jokic. No one would ever argue about that from an athletic standpoint, from a speed standpoint, maybe not passing, maybe not shooting threes, but he does the other stuff that could cause problems that with there. However, Jokic seems to have this turned up a certain way. And we talked about this because I wanted to use this as a good example because I'd gotten a lot of flack about picking Larry Bird over LeBron as my top 5. Oh, because LeBron James is this amazing athlete and amazing, stamina and longevity. Great. That's great. I understand that. And there's validity to that. He's going to be able to put that hat on and say, hey, look, I played 22 years at the top of my game practically all my career. Great. I won with 3 different teams. That's great. I love it. But when you talk about a top 5 player in basketball, I factor in this. And I trust players that are maybe not as accomplished. And again, at this point, maybe Kareem is there with LeBron, and really there's no one else. There's no one else. Who else? Kobe played 20 years, but the last 4 years with Kobe was injury riddled, right? So at what point do you not understand that I value this? I value this more than I value a 20-year career or a career where you're dropping 20 and 10 and 5, especially in this era where no one's going to argue. I mean, who's going to argue that it's not watered down? Would you say it's watered down, Stone? The stats compared to what it was?
It's a difficult question without getting super into it because the pace is equal. But obviously threes are way up. So, I mean, I would say there's inflated stats. To what degree, I think, is more where the argument is.
So the pace is the same, which Sean Grice, a few years back, he had alerted me to a stat about pace. It wasn't that much far off from the 90s,
I think it's up like 1.5 possessions.
Yeah, it wasn't that much. And the 90s was supposed to be the dead ball era of basketball, where you saw finals games 79, 78. I'm sorry. I remember you saw Miami Knicks games that were ending 79, 77. So what is it? They're just better shooters?
Better shooters and less defense.
Less defense. Okay. Now, the mental part in the Denver game played a huge factor, and it continues to play a huge factor. What is JJ Redick going to do to bust this out? Can he? Can AD get over it? Right now, it doesn't look like it. LeBron sometimes, when he feels like his team is dead, he's not really going to inspire you, and that's not a negative. It's just what it is. It's just this. That's just how that works. I don't really put a lot of rah, let's go, guys. Like, I don't really care about that either. So the Lakers have to make a decision now. The main guys have to make a decision on what they really want to be this year. Can they hang on long enough so that Rob can create a miracle? Because that's really the only thing that's going to save this team this year from first round exit, maybe at best, to maybe winning a round in the first round. I don't know. There has to be a talent return at some point after December 15th. And that's something I'm going to stick with the whole way. It doesn't matter if the Lakers play really, really well to the point where they're averaging, let's say, 10 wins for every 16 games they're playing. They still need at least one big that can be formidable in the rebounding department, and they need a third guy that can score consistently. Can they get those two things? Probably one if they're lucky, but both, that's the miracle. Because if you can get those two things, there's a chance that they can at least kind of balance this thing out. Because now you're not worried about, oh, shoot, I got to have LeBron in there to score or AD to score. AD can sit. You can bring the big guy in. Okay, good. We're not going to lose our – because the rebounding is still a problem. And the rebounding is what's been the problem. The Lakers shot well last year. The Lakers had health last year. What has not changed? Well, actually, at the beginning of the year was a little bit – wasn't as bad. But that's because everybody was – energetic, they started winning, and that a lot of times that happens where you're like, oh, but as soon as they started kind of getting a little tired or started losing a few games, now that enthusiasm went down. And now I'm noticing in the last 4 or 5 games, more and more offensive rebounds by the opponent. That has to be solved, folks. If that doesn't get solved, it's game over. And it's not just rebounding once. It's shoot, miss, offensive rebound, shoot, miss, offensive rebound, shoot, miss, offensive rebound in the same series. If you called me and said, Joe, you need to talk about Austin Reeves and why he stinks. Okay. Why? Well, he's not posting up. Look at these sequences where he's not posting up when he's right there. Yes, we know he's not a rebound, but can he? I'm sorry, box out, not post up. Why can't he box out right there so that he at least can clear a rebound for someone there? Okay, yeah, you're right. And I did look at that, by the way. And he's not. So now what? Now what? Are we going to blame JJ Redick for not saying something? It's a lot of questions, isn't it?
A lot of questions.
I mean, I'm getting a headache just asking questions. I'm tired of these questions. How about just stop being a bitch and play basketball? You can tell when someone's playing hard and it's not working still. At that point, I can go, hey, man, look, AD dropped 35 and 14. They lost. What do you want them to do? LeBron had a triple-double, had one turnover. What do you want him to do? AD got smoked by Jamal Murray. What do you want him to do? But I saw the Cowardly Lion and the Tin Man. I've been using the Wizard of Oz analogy a lot lately because I think it's relatable and everybody's watched it. And I think it's an easier way to call these people certain things without using the P words and the S words and the W words. Oh, don't get me started on Gabe Hernan. I don't even know what that guy does every day, to be honest. I've already suggested, just look, if this guy's gonna get you 0 points, just cut him. Seriously, eat the money. Just you know what, dude? We'll go put Olivari in there. At least he'll get 2 points. How about that? Can we get 2 points? You tell me. Here's another question. Would you rather have Olivari in there to score 2 points versus Gabe Vincent, who's scoring 0?
So with that, Stone, I know that something I wanted to bring up because Masked Up on Twitter approached Joe Soro and I on this. He mentioned that if we would go ahead and be interested, or as far as to talk about what would D'Lo, 2 first, and Rui, I would throw in JHS because he also has an expiring. What would that get? Would that get a 3rd star? Would that get us depth? Stone, I want to hear your thoughts. If we based it off of what Masked Up was saying on Twitter, you would probably be talking about $35 million ish around there. With JHS, get it close to 40. Rui, it does have another year on his contract. What exactly could that do with us? Do for us as a team? Do for the Lakers as a team? Especially with the 2 firsts involved as well. Stone.
There's, I think, a couple names come to mind. Neither of them are names I would do this trade for, but that you have to look at with the new CBA. There's guys like Brandon Ingram, for example, that nobody wants to trade for because they know he's going to get a max, and you can't pay a max to a third star in with this certain CBA. You're you're handicapping yourself by doing so. It's why guys like Middleton, guys like MPJ, those contracts are going to look, and they're good players. I think they're both very good players, but those contracts are going to look awful because you're paying a third star, um, you know, close to what a second star makes, and you can't afford that with the certain payment structure of the CBA. So, but guys that I think you could because of that, guys that are gonna want a lot of money to re-sign this upcoming free agency. So their teams might be looking to offload them. Might be Brandon Ingram. Another guy I've thought about recently, which I'm really hoping doesn't happen, but I could see happening, would be Jimmy Butler. Um, I I mean, you throw into someone like Gabe as to and the money match is pretty close to what Gerald had already said. And I think if you did the two first unprotected, and Jimmy was set on leaving because he didn't get that contract extension, that riff with Pat Riley, I could see that as a plausible package for somebody that a team already perceives as leaving anyway. So they might as well get something for him. I could see that. I don't want it to happen. I don't want to get rid of these picks. That's where I'm at right now. I don't care what these picks bring back. I don't want to move them. I want to save and build for the post LeBron era. And but if we're talking about third stars or potential names, I think those are probably the two that I'm not saying will happen, but I see a pathway to both those teams accepting that sort of package for him.
Joe, the question was originally sent out to you on Twitter by Mask Up in regards to that type of package. What do you think that package could yield before we get to Robert's question and before we head on out?
You want me to read Roberts, or do you want me to?
No, the Mask Up's question, which was D'Lo 2 first, Rui for a third star, because it was originally directed towards you on Twitter.
There won't be a third star for those guys, even if they included the two.
How about more depth?
No, that won't happen either. I don't
Those
think
two first won't get us.
Rob is not good at his job, but he's not that bad. Matter of fact, I think he's had that offer on the table probably several times. It's just you can't do that. There is no third star. There is no third star that would make a difference. That is going to get paid that what those guys are going to fetch. It would have to be. It would have to be a disgruntled player making $30 million a year, whom is really good, something like that. But I don't know anybody who. I'm telling you guys, this collective bargaining agreement that was signed last year or 18 months ago absolutely destroyed trades and player movement. And what have the Lakers been the staple of in 50 years? The last 50 years. More than that. Is their ability to acquire stars. It started with Wilt Chamberlain, went to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and so on and so on. It's over. The way the Lakers made their mark was taking established stars in their prime or a little after their prime, but still good enough, and have won championships every way. LeBron, in a lot of ways, technically he was a free agent, but he really wasn't, because there was already noise he was coming. And it was just essentially the Lakers said to Julius Randle, we're just going to let you go. because we're going to free up money so we can get LeBron. It's almost like trading Randall for LeBron, contract to contract in a lot of ways to free up the contracts.
So before we head out of lunch and go ahead, tip the waitress and all that, it is Lunch with Stone Hansen. Stone, Robert Wheeler has always got a great question waiting for us. Joe and Stone, do you think the Lakers' game plan just needs to be to outscore teams like Denver by putting their best offensive players in the starting five? We talked about it a little bit before with earlier in the show with Dalton Connect in there. Teams who beat Denver last year score easily. Kings, the OKC, Suns, etc. Again, I not saying necessarily take Rui out. Maybe take Cam out and put Connect in there just for more firepower.
I think Denver is just better than us. I don't think it really matters what we do at this point. I think they just have our number, and whatever adjustments we try and make, I think it doesn't mean you don't try different things, but I think Denver is just a flat out better team than us. They're a couple levels above us, and the players seem to have that deeply installed into the depths of their minds whenever we play them. So I'm not sure what adjustments we make that would propel us above them. I think it's we could play faster. You try and play with Connect and D'Lo and Reeves and LeBron and AD, but at the end of the day, you're trying to beat them at their own game. They're just a better scoring team. They're more efficient. So I think it's difficult to figure out what that component is to get us over them. I don't think whatever changes we make is enough.
Joe, the question was put out there by Robert Wheeler. Do you think the Lakers game plan just needs to be, let's just put our best 5 offensive weapons out there and just try to outscore teams? Because the Gabe Vincents, the Cam Reddishes of the world that actually play defense, or at least the defensive metrics say they do, they're a non-entity on the offensive end. Max Christie, yeah, he might play a little bit better defense, but still, he is just not a viable offensive threat either. Your thoughts on just putting your 5 best offensive players out there and just trying to outscore these teams? Because the one thing JJ has done well so far this season is implement an offense that does click at times.
No, there's no way that's going to sustain itself. LeBron is too old to run. If it was LeBron 5 years ago, maybe. Even then would have been amazing. LeBron can't run back and forth for another 70 games or 60 whatever games. AD always has something tweaking. I don't think his body is meant to be running back and forth all the time as well. You could say Dalton, sure, he's just rookie, 23. He could probably handle it. Austin, he's young. He could probably do it. Rui to a degree, sure, but no, not the two big, the pillars of this team. It's just I don't know what to tell you other than that's not gonna work, Robert. I'm sorry. The Lakers. The Lakers don't have, honestly, a way of improving this team based off the rules and their assets. Unless the entire West gets injured like the East got injured last year, except for the Celtics, I don't know how they're going to get through it. I don't know. I don't know at this point. There's not enough talent on this team in the right areas. So making these guys run a sprint the rest of the way, yeah. Even Kobe Bryant, folks, he tried to do that in 13, and he blew a tire. Now that's the most well-conditioned, mentally hardened human being you probably ever see in basketball. and even he blew out a tire.
So before we head on out, I'm going to go ahead and bring it back to you, Stone, and then Joe, if you want to mention here in a minute on what we're working on for tonight, because you said you wanted to discuss a certain topic for tonight later on. Stone, what you working on at Report _ Court, or when the guys come together back for the Upside Swings podcast?
Yeah, I'm kind of just going through some film right now. So any clips or anything, I'm kind of just posting on Twitter or Blue Sky, and I'm just sort of showing what I see, and sort of explaining it to people so they can see it as well. So if you have interest in the draft or anything, you can follow me at any of those sites.
Well, again, Brian, it sounds like you wanted the potential of what you had with all those young Lakers, as opposed to having the certainty of a chip like we did with AD. If you ask me, I do it to trade 100 times out of 100 for AD, because again, the certainty of a chip, as opposed to the certainty of having a team that had a lot of youth and talent, but you don't know how it would have matured together. Don't know what if it worked. So again, uncertainty versus certainty. I'll take the chip every time. Joe, before we head on out, you said you wanted to talk about a subject later on tonight, because Stone, I know it has to jet on out here as far as leave lunch, but you said you wanted to discuss something later on tonight for the snack pack later on.
You talking about what I said this earlier in the show?
Yeah, no, before yesterday about the subject.
Oh,
You
well, I
said
think there's going to be. I think what needs to be discussed a little more is there's some subjects I had in mind. Let me see if I can bring up the list. Where was it? I want to talk about something that we kind of hinted on about the NBA voters. I think there's some shows that we can do on that. The other is, and this is something I talked to Empire Jeff about as well. He's going to be doing that on his shows. Is we want to start campaigning for the Guggenheims to get a little bit more pub about possibly getting this team. The Guggenheims own 27% of the Lakers. I didn't know that number until recently. And AEG is apparently struggling too. And Genie is probably not equipped to run a franchise like the Lakers in today's sports landscape. So I believe that the Laker fans need to start campaigning, and I believe we should be part of that campaign. Hopefully it'll build some noise, a little bit like the groundwork. We need to start promoting that the Guggenheims need to take over the Lakers. They do have first right refusal, by the way, too. So if they did want to sell, they get the first dibs, which is great. And Guggenheims have run one of the best organizations in baseball for 12 seasons. I'm not saying that because I'm a Dodger fan. I actually went back and looked since 2013. I looked at just kind of how things have been run with the Dodgers. It's been pretty phenomenal. It's a little easier to create in baseball, though. There isn't a hard cap and things like that. But much like Jerry, Dr. Buss, her father, there were times when the league was trying to cap the Lakers a little bit here and there. David Stern, definitely. And he'd always find a way. The great ones always find a way, regardless of the challenge. And I think it's time that Genie really looks in the mirror and understands that the Buss family's run is coming to an end here, of being able to be productive. And it's really going to likely hit home when LeBron is gone. I think after a few bad seasons without a star player, because you can't get these guys anymore, I think I'm taking a guess that that might be what eventually turns this. But then again, it might not. She might say, screw it, I'm going to be here until I die. Sure. But how is that going to work? Especially with the new collective bargaining agreement, where the NBA has made it very clear that they don't want any of their stars to go anywhere anymore. As long as if you're an all NBA player, you're not going to say no to a supermax. There might be one out there every now and then. That's it. Everyone's going to want that extra money.
So with that, lunch break is over for us. Again, lunch with Stone Hansen. Stone, it's always great to have you on. Joe and I are just like, we will rearrange our schedule to go ahead and have lunch with Stone. You're just that kind of guy. Thanks, by the way. I appreciate, Stone, you stopping by, and thanks for picking up the tab for lunch on the way out.
Anytime.
All right. Sounds good. Joe, any last thoughts before we head on out?
Nope.
No? Okay. Please tip your waitress, everyone. It is, of course, lunch with Stone Hansen. We'll be back. You said tonight, right? So we're going to be on tonight, Joe?
More than likely, yes.
More than likely, yes. Okay, I'll take that. More than likely, we'll be on later tonight. Don't forget, of course, tomorrow, playback.tv/Lakers Fast Break as the Lakers face off against the Phoenix Suns. We'll bring you all the action there as well. And, of course, the best post game in town tomorrow night. And Nightcap, of course, belongs with us right here at the Lakers Fast Break. So for Joe Sorrell and Stone Hansen, it's Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching, listening. Lunchtime is now over right here at the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.